you have a species of divine connection that allows you to see everything as if for the first time, right? Being reborn in a sense. That mirror is extremely clearer. You understand the things in it to a much greater degree than you did before. It loses its haziness, it loses its vagueness. You lose your apathy and you begin to tune in.
Mm.
That mirror becomes very clear. And then what you start noticing is, I can change what appears to me in this mirror. I can change it. And then you think to yourself, oh my, am I the type of person that can handle this? Should I? Well, I have it now. So how do I responsibly deal with this? And maybe sometimes you don't 100%. But what does begin to happen when you put yourself in service is that mirror begins to communicate to you as if it were somehow a fucking living being.
Mm.
That a certain movement of the sky and appearance of a person and the barking of a dog and the words of a sign all work in concert, like the eyes, nose, ears, mouth, and speech of a person communicating to you in ways that defy probability, that are stymieing, that are fucking existentially impactful in ways that, like, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's like, you don't, at that point, like, you don't even have faith anymore.
Yeah.
You just know. And then you live your life according to what that, and it's a little cheesy because it's kind of cliche, but in Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, that book I read it many, many, many years ago, it still rings true today. He talks about interpreting the omens of your life.
Mm.
And that's essentially what you're doing, except they're less omens at that point, and they're more of a symphony of synchronicities. A symphony of synchronicities that are impinging upon you almost constantly.
Yeah.
So that's how you know. you know.
Yeah.
And there is an overwhelming feeling of love and responsibility with that love. And I can't say that is, I think one of the hardest parts of accepting that onus is to not allow that love to become really heavy, to
Mm.
become laden with irritation, disappointment, frustration, etc. Right? Because if you don't love somebody, if you don't love humanity, then there'd be no reason for you to be upset with them.
Yeah. Right. It's like if you don't love your wife or your girlfriend, then it doesn't really matter. You won't get mad. Like whatever happens, you're
Right.
like, who even cares? But like since you care, you're like upset because you want to protect something because you love that person and it means something to you.
Mhm.
Like, but yeah.
Absolutely. And again, I don't want to justify bad behavior under the auspices or of love, but I mean, think about it, right? It's not in every case that people are bitter or frustrated because they love humanity. Obviously it's not always the case, but I would say in this position, when you feel that overwhelming love that makes you want to just go up and hug and kiss everyone on a fucking disgusting 12 o'clock noon train, A train, and fucking New York City subway. You want to get up, start dancing, holding everybody's hands and looking in their eyes and saying, "Don't you see it? Don't you see it?" Like that happens. And then there's a high there. And then after that, it can get heavy because you're looking into their eyes and you can tell their mirror's not polished, their mirror's
Mm.
not clear. And you're like, I'm not getting through to you.
Mhm.
And then that becomes heavy.
It's like being lucid in a dream, and then all the dream characters are just like doing their dream character roles, and you're like, hey, we're here.
Yeah, and what's worse is the more awake you become, the more aggressive they get. It's
Yes.
like in the movie Inception
They
when the
start
dream
coming. Yeah.
characters start fucking turning on you, and that's why the greatest fucking prophets and spiritual teachers are almost always murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dunk the Funk asks, well, he has a few different questions.
Oh wait, where is are we live or did
No,
you
we're
take
not.
these?
I got these
Oh,
ahead of time, so
oh, all right.
yeah, don't worry. Um, he was like wanting you to elaborate on Kabbalah and Star Wars and how they mix. I don't
Oh
know, that
fuck.
could be a lot. And then another thing is, what's the daily practice of the adept look like without giving too many spoilers away or breaking any oaths? Like what's that look like?
In the Golden Dawn, I'm assuming
Yeah.
because yeah. Um, well, personally, I don't know that there is any definite correlation between Star Wars and Kabbalah.
Mm.
There is a universal aspect to Star Wars because it was created intentionally so to be universal, and Kabbalah is certainly, at least the way we practice it, the modern Hermetic capital Q Kabbalah is a universalizing system. Um, but other than that, I wouldn't say that there's any direct connection to the Kabbalah. You want to talk to me about the wisdom of Yoda? That's a totally different thing. But that might have to do more with esoteric Taoism and initiation generally. So, and if anybody else does kind of see any correlations, that'd be fun. Talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Uh, Golden Dawn adept work. Depending on what grade you're in, because it can vary depending on if you're 5'6" or 6'5", the work is different. At least to my understanding. But generally, the 5'6" work will consist of once a day doing a sensing and a spurging, a banishing, and then a supreme invoking ritual. I'll just to get it done. I do a lesser hexagram. I do a greater hexagram. Okay, and I'll usually do these corresponding to, like, we know the right, pentagrams are elemental, hexagrams are planetary, um, or celestial. I will do the hexagrams in accordance with whatever the planetary day is. Try and do a day an hour. Now, for a general opening, you do sense and a spurge, a banishing, a pentagram banishing, um, a lesser hexagram banishing. Then I would do a supreme invoking ritual of the pentagram, and I would move into any other work. That could be Rose Cross ritual. That should be going on every day, or at least every other day. You could do the Minutum Mundum exercise, which is, and then the circulations of light that go with that, the serpent and the sword. Uh, once you become an adept, your written tests are uh not the problem anymore. Like, they're not the challenge. The challenge is effectively, right? Because I you have an examiner, and and especially if I'm your examiner, I took an obligation to grade without fear or favor. So you need to prove to me. I need to see the effects of your magic. And so to that end, you are given many, many, many practical assignments, many practical assignments, and this is part of your curriculum grade work. Uh, in Neophyte Adeptus Minor, it's going to be stuff like the consecrate. But can you charge a fucking candle with energy? Consecration. Can you do basic consecration? Um, why? Because then you have to make your implements and consecrate them. So now you got to do these rituals in front of me and show, I have to be able to see that not only did you do the formula correctly, but something's in the fucking room with us, and this thing has a charge. Uh, God form work, etc. You want to do that. Then Zam, you get into tarot, talismancy, um, the magic of the light, Enochian, tons and tons of stuff. So depending on if you're gearing up for a test, or if you have a particular question that you have, or a particular goal that you need to achieve, and you want to consecrate a talisman, it's just a wealth of things. But the overarching formula would be to sense and asperge the hall by what we call the Chaldean formula. You do banishings of the elements and of the celestial forces. You make your clean slate, your clean field. Then you invoke, uh, and at that point, you do a declaration. So you're always going to want to have some kind of, and then obviously, what you're doing, if you really want to, you're basically doing a short form version of the Z formulas, because you're doing a circumambulation and a trisagion adoration, holy art thou, holy art thou, holy art thou. And you, at that point, you make a declaration, whatever, do a knock, do a battery, and you would say, I now declare this Hall of the Zlator Adeptus Minor duly open for the aims and purposes of performing that work, which shall assist me to at length be raised by divine aid to my divine and higher genius. And then you proceed to your working, but you do want to make that declaration. I think is really important. That's the way we structure it in our temple anyway. So for the College of Adepti, which is growing rapidly these days.
Wow, extensive. Um,
Yes, yes.
that's wild.
And then like of course all of us have other fucking pet
Right.
projects, like I'm doing statue animations. It's just like, it's
It's
like,
freaking nuts. Um, and then another one is speaking to the potency of dreams as divine messages, and how to know if you've been visited by your daimon or an angel within your dreams. Are there certain characteristics that signify that, or is it more so subjective?
um So let's start off with talking about the quality of the dream. A dream that is more than just sort of neural brain dump, right? Or a psychological, unpacking of baggage, uh, will have a completely different quality to it. There will be typically a vividness. What I get this kind of imminence, where it's like I become very lucid, not lucid like I'm dreaming necessarily, but I become very, very focused and kind of aware of what's going on in the dream. And there's this kind of urgency just sitting in the air. Like I feel it. I don't necessarily know why, but I'm really dialed in to what's about to happen. And then obviously, appearances, presences in those dreams will have a certain impact on you. I recommend that you keep, this is why I tell everybody, keep a fucking dream journal and keep a notepad at the side of your bed, because you can't be expected at 3 o'clock in the morning after waking up from one of these things to start, pick up your fucking calligraphy nib fountain pen and start doing a beautiful rundown of what. No, keep a scratch notepad and jot down qualities, characteristics. It was glowing blue. He appeared to be 12 feet or so tall. His head was shaped like an octahedron. Like things like that in the dream will in this appearance. A lot of times you'll know. It starts out as a hunch. You like wake up and you're like, that was That was different, you
Hmm.
know. And then it's like I didn't. There's something other. There's an other quality to the dream that's hard to talk about, and then eventually you just know. Now, as to like understanding what the entity is, this is why it's important to be able to go lucid or semi-lucid in a dream. You got to ask. You got to ask. But then test that. Don't just wake up from the dream and say, "I'm your holy guardian angel, and I want you to go out and kill." Like you don't want to, you don't want to like, again, being facetious and dramatic to make a point, but you don't want to like, just say, "Oh, okay, I met my diamond. You're my holy guardian angel." So, there's that. But like, for instance, like I would then do a divination, but divination isn't always the greatest because if you have like a too much of a stake in the question that's being asked, you're liable to kind of like make, maybe an unintentional but probably a misinterpretation that is biased in a certain direction, either by fear or by favor. And then scrying is good. Prayer, prayer, but scrying is good. And then entering into vision. You could enter into vision and you do your magical protections, do a form of invocation, generic invocation, and ask that entity to appear to you. And if you've done protections, and if you're, let's say you've just done a rose cross ritual where there's Calvary crosses everywhere, you vibrated the name of Yeshua like fucking 6 to 10 times. And if that thing can't enter, that's a really good sign that that's not angelic. So you're
Did
gonna
you?
have to you're just gonna, there's no magic bullet. For some people, it's really easy. It's an automatic, like, yeah, of course. The thing is, a magician, I'm inherently skeptical. But that's the whole thing. If they're convinced of it and they know it, they could be right, and I'm just not going to listen. And that's kind of the hard-headedness that I think is healthy for magicians to have, as opposed to the medium.
Yeah. Uh, did you say at one point, like something like if you're seeing a in your dream, if you're seeing like a geometric manifestation, like maybe like glowing with light or something, that's likely a form that an angel would take, like a.
That it's no, typically conceived as a tradition among, I would say, certain adepti. Um, that yes, the right, all of the forms that beings appear to us to are agreed upon images. I remember when I first started doing, here's another thing that you do in Zam. You do a shitload of fucking scrying, tarot cards, Tatva cards, elemental cards, you know, signs of the zodiac. Plenty, you scry so much. And I remember meeting there, having an interface with a deity. And I remember it was kind of like the Somnium Scipionis, the dream of Scipio. We were just sort of floating, with Earth and the solar system down that way. And I remember asking, like, why have you taken this form? And the answer was, I didn't want to scare you.
Hmm.
So so there's that kind of thing where there is this interaction that is mediated by maybe preferred imagery, even though it's not always very specific. But when being presented with taking a form, the simplest, most automatic, and therefore purest, the least convoluted uh, appearance for something that is angelic, or let's say archangelic, is going to be a geometry. And that makes sense if you're thinking of the archangels in particular as gods, right? Because we know that ultimately, particularly in the Neoplatonic and Hermetic systems of philosophy, that the gods were anthropomorphization of the powers of number. So, and geometry is based on number, so it does make sense. I've had those appearances, but I have not been able to discern beyond a shadow of a doubt that that was specifically angelic. But you'll hear people like Josephine McCarthy talk about it. You'll hear people like Chick Cicero talk about that. So I tend not to take that lightly.
Yeah. Okay. Austin asks, uh, t- to what extent can you explicate on the nature of spiritual warfare? Is it a subjective battle within ourselves, or is there a collective effort by magicians slash people of faith to quote do battle with perhaps qliphothic or evil forces?
Well, both, but then also battle is not necessarily the greatest term for that.
Mm,
Um, you got to remember that the Tikkun Ha'olam, right? If we're talking about Klipot, uh, which is very Lurianic, the Tikkun Ha'olam, which is also Lurianic, the goal of of existence is to rescue the divine spark from the shells. You can't do that by beating them up.
mm,
Um, but there is certainly what appears to be a battle. And I think from a certain perspective needs to be approached like a battle. But then there is a later stage of development where that viewpoint is no longer appropriate.
mm,
It's the same like Iamblichus said, depending on where you are in your perspective. Are you in Malkuth of Isaiah looking up? Or are you in Tifereth of Yetzirah looking down? You
mm,
know, are you looking at things from matter first, my perspective first, very much so like the Gnostics, the great Christian spiritual warriors, they allocated the source of capital G good to the human experience. That's where they went wrong. Of course, God would appear to be evil if like what is good for humans is the universal good, but that's not the case. Uh, now, if you're looking at things from quote unquote spirit down, well, then it's totally different, right? And so it's that Iamblichus says fate from a certain perspective, from an elevated and initiated theurgic perspective, is actually providence. What is providence? Providence is charis, grace. So, but when you're looking at it from an uninitiated standpoint or the beginning of your journey, it looks like fate, which is deterministic. When in really, again, it's just similar to what I said before. You learn that these are not things being done to you, they're things being done for you.
mm,
But at a certain point, the theurgist, the Christian, the true Christian, says these things are being done through you. And it's that agency, that escaping of fate, that allows you then to become uh, not the arbiter, but the vehicle of God's will. So, or the will of the gods. It's all this. It's all the fucking same at the end of the day. Uh, so yeah. Sometimes you got to be a spiritual warrior, but then you got to understand when that's not appropriate because if you cannot live life, you can't come to every problem with a fucking sword. Trust me, I know.
yeah.
Okay.
Is it anything that you can elaborate on in terms of um uh the Tikkun HaOlam if you're going into these places to rescue the sparks of divinity within this uh, darkness or whatever, from like a spiritual perspective in your experience, what it looks like to uh, engage with something like that, and like what the experience is like.
Well, one of the main ways in which we do that is by, in the Golden Dawn in particularly, and in the capital Q, Hermetic Kabbalah. The way out is the way in. What does that mean? It means that if I want to have something, if I want to interact with something, I want to interface with a planetary power. If I want to interface with a chthonic, God forbid, demonic power, I first, well, normally what we would do in the case of a planetary thing is that you're rousing that part of your microcosm, however you have systematically mapped that, let's say by, for instance, with the tree of life, you're calling that to the fore of your microcosm. And that is what ultimately allows it to become attracted to you in the exterior world. These things are within us, but they're also outside of us. And so the same would be true if you were to summon a demon, it's going to awake that corresponding force within you. And so the real I'm not going to get into any ritual protocols because I can't, but I said it in the last class that I gave for the Hermetic Kabbalah course. You can't fight a planet, no matter what you do, no matter how fucking great of a magician you become, how powerful of a politician you become. You will not be able to change the orbits of the planets, but you can control and govern your microcosm. You can know and find and control the Mars within, the Jupiter within, the Venus within. That is how you fight an archon. That is a huge part of spiritual warfare, is like getting your microcosm under the control and governance of the highest part of your soul, what we would call the logistikon in the Platonic tradition.
What about if you're like able to detect there's like some sort of astral attack? You light up on the astral or something, and then there's like you're putting a target on yourself in some
You
dark.
you will feel if you're under real astral attack, you'll fucking feel you'll feel it in your body.
Mhm.
Um, even if it is more subtle, there'd be like a slight anxiety. Not many people are very in tune with their bodies anymore, particularly on the level of anxiety, because we've become so accustomed to that form of discomfort, and we're very checked out on all these devices and responsibilities. Uh, but an astral attack will always have etheric sort of byproduct. Uh, for instance, I had kind of a recent thing go down. It was pretty high profile in our scene. Um, and the night that it all kind of happened, I woke up, probably 2, 3 in the morning, and right in front of my face was this fucking. It looked like an electric dragon, and its face was shifting in like white flame in front of me, and it was just its eyes were widening and closing. It was showing me its teeth, and I just was like half awake, and I looked at it. And this kind of stuff has happened to me before, particularly when I was asleep. Something, a face appearing to me, like in my line of view, and then remaining there. Um, and I just was like, "Oh fuck!" and Nicole was like, "What?" And I said, "Nothing." She's like, "You just said, oh fuck, is everything okay?" I'm like, "Oh," because I didn't want to like scare her, because she's like really fucking scared of stuff like that, which is like she's like marrying the wrong person, but I did a certain kind of thing, and it kind of like shut down, didn't go away, but it shut down, and it like it couldn't. Effectively, I put a defense between me and it just kind of lost its enthusiasm, but was still there. So, which leads me to believe that it was not there of its own accord.
What is that? Is that are
It's
those
likely a
manif
thought form.
from other individuals or is it
I think so.
yeah.
I mean, you
Um
know what? You're kind of onto a good point. It could be self-generated. You know, they say that a lot about a lot of poltergeist phenomenon. Is that like the fucking person that it's happening to is actually the one creating a lot of it. So, yeah, that's something to think about.
is there any Western equivalent to Ayurvedic or traditional Chinese medicine dietary principles?
Um, well, Ayurvedic medicine is based primarily on what we call the doshas, which are effectively elements that correspond to uh an overall disposition in terms of attitude, metabolism, form of the body, what kinds of medicine are good for you, what kind of medicines are bad for you or not as effective, potentially harmful for you. This all has to do with the doshas. In the Western system, we have Galenic or humoral medicine. We have the medicine of the humors, which are corresponded to the elements. So, yes, there's that. In terms of dietary principles, the main thing that you have to understand is that diets were vastly fucking different between, Asia and Western Europe or the Mediterranean. So, what I find in most traditions of, let's say, traditional or classical medicine is that you eat local, you eat mostly plants, and you eat
Season.
seasonally. Eat seasonally. And that is just kind of abiding by the natural circumstances which the soul of the cosmos has presented to us. Um, But other than that, I mean, like, yeah, there's certain astrological stuff too. I'm not sure how much that comes into play with Ayurvedic medicine. I don't know if Jyotish, uh, it's got to be. There's got to be some application, but I'm ignorant of it. But obviously, there's a tradition of zodiacal astrological kind of like when a really good one is that in Marsilio Ficino's three books on life. In the last book, I think he recommends a solar diet. So the diet that you would need to consume in order to increase the attributes of the sun and all its various correspondences. So there's a little bit of that stuff in there too. But I'd say mostly based on the humors and the doshas, although I think there's only three doshas and there's four humors. But still, yeah, I think that's about as much as I want to talk about that.
Yeah. Local local and seasonal, it seems like it just makes so much sense because it's like your the plants or the food that you're eating is environmentally informed. And then so if you're eating that like locally and seasonally, it's in harmony with like your environment
Yeah,
instead of like
God didn't put us here with fucking 18 wheelers. He didn't, like we didn't have delivery trucks until very recently. So where it's like I can have a piece of fruit that was in fucking California on Thursday.
yeah.
It's like that's not natural. That's not good.
All right. Rich and Candace have some questions. One is, do you
Wait, hold on. When did you get all these questions from them? How did you do
um
it?
I got some of them today and then some of them a few days ago. But
Okay. Was there a meeting or like what
no,
happened?
I was just communicating with random
Okay,
people.
okay, okay. Okay.
Um, do you think that all learning is recollection, anamnesis of truths, the soul already knows?
Yes, because there's a certain insight that once you possess it, you can learn anything. And it's not a knack, it's not a trick, it's not a type of memory work. It's insight.
Hmm.
And that insight opens everything up. It's the only reason I know 80% of what I do and what I can communicate is because of having obtained a level of insight. I always aspired to be intelligent, but I was like little more than fucking average for most of my life up until initiation. And the thing is really about halfway through that initiation, the Outer Order of the Golden Dawn, not only did my memory improve, not only did this insight start to burgeon, not only did I begin to intuitively understand things, I, I developed all these other fucking weird talents. Like I learned I could all of a sudden I could draw really well. You know, so yeah, I do think that a portion of it, it's not exactly it's not exactly like remembering, but there is an insight that is inherent to the soul that says, "Oh, really the only barriers between me and something else are ones that are I am agreeing to maintain in some way."
Hmm. How does the idea of the world soul and the timeus relate to human consciousness?
Uh, well, consciousness is soul, right? For all intents and purposes. Um, and when the demiurge in his big crater, his mixing bowl, creates the psyche cosmos, the soul of the universe, the world soul, he pours it into the moving image of eternity. The leftovers, whatever's left over in that bowl, he sort of scrapes, and then hands off
Hmm.
to the archons and says, "You finish the rest. Here's the immortal part. You give him the mortal part." So I think that there is actually something really interesting having to do with the question asked just before this, and it it wouldn't surprise me if this was intentional on Rich and Candace's part, but to some degree, the nature of our soul and our consciousness it partakes of the nature of the world soul, and we know that, right? We talk about how that's what makes us a microcosm. That's what makes us the microcosm, the little universe, is the fact that we do get that logos, that order, that rationale, and that, you know, little piece of what is ultimately immortal, deathless. So, but then, all the mortal shit comes the deterministic stuff, the stuff that the archons make because they're the arbiters of time and order of the material cosmos. So they have to condition us in a way where we can partake of that cosmos. And in order to partake of this cosmos, there has to be a part of you that is mortal, that's gonna die. Because you can't be in time and be out of time at the same time. Like, so if you're here, then you have a beginning, middle, and end to some capacity. Otherwise, you can't be here. Yeah.
Um, you kind of alluded to this a little bit. Um, how has your practice in the Golden Dawn changed your understanding of yourself?
Um, well, it made me really interested in the beginning to discover myself. And then it made me kind of like realize that, oh, this obsession with discovering myself is not healthy. in fact, in fact, the obsession with myself is dangerous. And so I threw myself into physical therapy, acupuncture, and massage, where I spend hours in a day thinking about someone else. Think about other people. Um, but you realize, I guess all the cliche things, how you're going through it with all these people, and whether anyone realizes it or not, form a solidarity, and they're like another you. I'm not going to say they're another you, but they are like another you.
Yeah.
Um, and I I do it's the moments of insight that continually reveal to me that I am capable of things I wouldn't even whisper.
Hmm.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean
Yeah.
things that would destroy, I think, a healthy mind and a way of being in this world. That's how powerful. But at the same time, my only purpose is to serve.
Hmm. That's
So
and
it's those two things in tandem, particularly in the adept grade, where it's like I mean, I know that I could move mountains, and for all intents and purposes, I have before,
yeah.
speaking poetically. But the main thing is that that power will only last if I serve other people and God with it. It's not, it will kill me if I try and use it for myself.
Yeah. Um, I've had like a few different people I've talked to that have experienced, or like it's just common in their life that they experience a lot of anxiety. And what they've told me is that when if somebody comes to them and is like, "Oh my God, I need help. Can you help me with this thing?" And them then taking the focus off of themselves and then acting in service to another person makes their anxiety go away, and then they feel like they it like it makes them back to like a good, calm, neutral, like purpose filled feeling. And so it seems like in the world, there's probably a lot of people that are suffering from mental like disturbances and issues, and a lot of it relates to um, the antidote being service externally and not so much like focusing on yourself.
Yeah, it's a type of neuroticism that originates in self-obsession. And we live in an age that is encouraging us to be self-obsessed. And so therefore making us more and more neurotic. And then all the whole time we're blaming it on fucking genetics and I don't know, the thyroid. Like it's like, well, there's also all this other shit like hyper violence, free pornography, and social media, but
Yeah.
that's not, we're good. That's good. We want to
Yeah.
keep that stuff, right?
All right. Uh, which ritual has been most transformative for you? If you can speak about it.
Which ritual has been most transformative? Well, there's probably four that are on equal footing. The neophyte of the Golden Dawn, the 5-6 of the Golden Dawn, or RR at AC. It's really 5-6 is part of the Golden Dawn system. Uh my Master Mason's degree and the first degree I took for the Yellow Cohen.
Hmm. Probably can't talk about that, but
Nope.
yeah, it's interesting. Um, this one might be a long, or I guess you can make it however long you want. But it's the last question. What do you think the founders, Mathers, Westcott, and Woodman, would say about today's orders? It's kind of vague, but I guess you could take it however you want.
Woodman, I don't know because he didn't leave us much. I don't really know for the other three, but I mean, Woodman would be the one that for the other two, but Woodman would be the one that I would probably say I have no fucking inkling how he would respond. Uh, I think Samuel Mathers would be excited by the prospect of a world, to some degree, a world enthusiastic about magic, but he would just be continually tormented by the way that it's being practiced and what I guess the misunderstandings and really the profanation of it. I think Westcott would be very, very satisfied on one hand with the scholarly work, the academic work. I think that the abandonment of any kind of faith in that, in that milieu, the complete relinquishment of any form of religious life, or speculation, I think he would have really thought was a major mistake and something that tainted all the academic understanding, which I agree.
Mm.
Um, I think overall they would understand. There's so many other complex things that have to come into play that they wouldn't have even understood. Like social media is like
Yeah.
and the internet is like one of the largest contributing factors to the fact that everything is the way it is in magic and otherwise. And they wouldn't, I'm not even sure they'd be able to understand that at first, like any of this stuff. So I think overall, though, if we're just basing it off of people's general attitudes, well, I'll say this. If I lived back then and I was a founder of the Golden Dawn and I came back, either reincarnated or I traveled into the future and saw today, I would I would probably say I should not have done what I did.
Mm.
Because it's really their fault that the whole world is practicing magic. And that's not an overstatement because you wouldn't know about the fucking grimoire tradition. Most people wouldn't know about it if it wasn't for Mathers, who gave it to Crowley, who gave it to the world. You know, we wouldn't know. The academics would have it, and we wouldn't. You know, fucking Abramelin would still be somewhere in some library in Paris.
Yeah.
So Mathers found it, and translated it, and then Crowley kind of plagiarized it. And that's why, so I think ultimately I would come back and I would be like, man, I fucked up. They're putting this shit on t-shirts. It's in fucking Coca-Cola commercials. Lady Gaga is fucking, like another Kate Bush did a fucking song where the whole chorus is a fucking is the invocation of the archangels of the LBRP. You know, it's
Well,
the cheesiest fucking thing in the world. I'd look around and I'd be like, this society cannot handle this stuff. It's like giving a flamethrower to a fucking toddler.
yeah.
So, yeah, I would deeply, deeply regret everything I had done. But we're here now, and the cat's out of the bag. There's no putting the ills back into Pandora's jar. So what we've got to do now is just kind of stand on the side of the road with a sign letting people know the bridge is out ahead. Take this detour.
Yeah. All right, I got one more from myself, and then we can close it out.
Okay.
Um, what is the point of the Noah's Ark story?
Oh, fuck me. Um, According to who? Like
Just like,
Noah
what do
or whoever
you
wrote it?
like? What do you think? Like, what's the point of it? What's the message? What is it even? Is it just to? I mean, like, what do you take away from it? Like, what is?
It's pretty weird. I'm pretty sure Noah gets drunk and has sex with his children. So that's I'm not sure that happens on the boat. Might have happened afterward. The Old Testament is disgusting. But yeah, I think
Is it just like an elaborated story of
no,
like
well,
there's a
here's the thing.
flood and
There's every fucking civilization. Campbell proved this beyond the shadow of a doubt. Like almost every civilization we can count has left us some record of a gigantic flood that destroyed
yeah,
the earth at one point, right? The deluge. And
yeah.
obviously the Hebrews would have inherited this from ultimately from the Mesopotamians, right? We know the Epic of Gilgamesh has a flood story, and the hero's name is Utnapishtim, and very much a Noah character. But the overarching spiritual sentiment is that humanity has the potential to go very, very fucking wrong. Um, I think we see that now. God, at a certain point, said, I cannot abide this. I cannot abide this." And because of what you have turned into, the way that you seem to habitually be using the powers granted to you, the station granted to you, albeit you've already fallen from that high station, but it's just getting worse and worse. You're spiraling. I have to, I got to end this.
Hmm.
And that means ending you. And I don't think that's the message. I think ultimately the message is, but I'm going to get Noah and his family onto a boat. They're going to get animals of every kind, two sexes, and we're going to start this over. So God communicates to Noah, and he's building the ark. He's building the ark. The thing happens, and then finally they see the rainbow of promise, and
Mm.
what that says
Yeah.
is that I am promising you that I will never ever abandon you. I will never abandon you, even if things have to get so fucking bad. Um, I will never abandon you.
Okay, Light, I have one more question. Um, what does it mean to have been brought from among the rejected?
Well, you're talking about obviously these people are not going to know if they're if they're they're just going to be like, where the fuck did that come from? I think, is that from the Bible? And yeah, it kind of is. There's a double entendre there, because Christ was called the stone that the builders refused,
Mm.
that later became the cornerstone of the entire temple. The entire building was the stone that the builders refused. Why? They killed him. We don't want him. Pontius Pilate said to the people of Judea, I will remand a prisoner to you, as is my custom on this particular day. Shall I release Jesus unto you? And they said, no, we want Barabbas. Kill that guy. Um, he was the stone that the builders refused, to put it poetically, and then through the resurrection became the cornerstone of the hall. So there's an illusion there in that line of the in that portion of the Golden Dawn ritual where it comes from. There's a biblical connection, a biblical precedent, but also to be brought forth from among the rejected is also to brought brought forth charis, grace. It's kind of like in Plato's cave. You're a prisoner. The prisoner doesn't escape because of their own will or their own wit. Somebody comes and unties them and then drags them, kicks them, and pushes them. This is according to the Platonic dialogues. It's not me being exaggerating. The verbiage says to pull, push, and to force them out of the cave. So there's charis, there's a grace there that calls you forth into the line of the initiated and out of the world of darkness where you were once an inheritor of that dying world. You have been brought for why? Because who are the rejected? The rejected in this instance are the children of Adam and Eve, the ones who were cast out from the garden. You're turning back. You're turning back. I don't want to be in exile anymore. You're willing to take the step um, upward to the path of return.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Oof,
fucking
this was
awesome.
a fucking exercise mentally for me.
Thank
It's
you.
always good. It's always good.
I think it'd be so good. It's gonna be fun for everybody to enjoy. Is there anything that you have up and coming that you want to like let people know about?
When is this going out? Like
Let's
about.
see. What's today? Thursday, Friday. It's gonna go out this weekend.
Okay.
Saturday, maybe.
So then I just will have put up an episode of the podcast with Jamie Lamb, and we're talking about
I'm gonna put this out. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off.
is there
I'm I'm gonna put it probably in a few different segments. So,
okay.
but yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. So this will probably come later. All right.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess.
so there's been a couple of really great podcast episodes that I've done. I recommend people going and checking that out. Um, I am going to Egypt, as many of you know, leaving the 15th,
Oh,
and we're doing
that's
techniques of
crazy.
Greco-Egyptian theurgy, and I'll be there, just full time for 9 or 10 days, a little bit more than that actually. Just teaching the history, theory, and practice of these things. So right now I'm neck deep in
Yeah.
the final preparations for a lot of that, and then straight from that that'll end on the 26th, and I'll go straight to the new Hermopolis for the second Hermopolis symposium. And then I'll be back stateside, and I don't really have anything planned in terms of presentations, like presenting anywhere until February, where I'm going to be. I was very fortunate to be asked to speak among the presenters this year were selected rather than there wasn't like an open submission for Sacred Space Between the Worlds sort of dual conference, and that's going to have a lot of fantastic speakers.
Where's that? Is that
It's
in
gonna be
a
in
physical?
Maryland.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's
Yeah, yeah, no, this is part of that whole, pagan circuit affiliated with Llewellyn.
what,
So
what part of Maryland is it in?
I forget, but I can look it up real quick. I went last year too, but I didn't present. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's the hotel of the university, College Park, Maryland.
College Park. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when are you starting your music and magic?
Oh yeah. So that'll be November 17th. We're this is yeah, definitely put this out there. We're wrapping up the final class of the Hermetic Kabbalah course. This is the first group course that I've ever
It's freaking
offered, and
awesome.
and the enrollment was fucking fantastic, and the response has been tremendous. I've tried my best to keep this really affordable. I mean, like, to the point where it's like I almost feel sick to my stomach that it's so fucking cheap and I'm giving so much, but it's like, you know, um people usually don't get into magic if they're rich. They get into
Yeah.
magic because they don't have any fucking money. And there's reasons they don't have any money that they're not willing to circumvent. So, hey, let's try some wand waving. So I'm forced to keep it very low, but uh, I'm offering something for just as quote unquote fair a price point starting November 17th. We're going to be beginning a new course um, that will dovetail somewhat, but it's this one is going to be called Musica Universalis, Music as Magic. So we're going to be studying over the course of 7 sessions,
Nice.
taking place every other week. We're going to be covering number theology, um, Pythagorean geometry, philosophy, harmony, and then taking that foundation, which is really the bedrock of all esoteric thought, particularly in the West, but also of many schools in the East, at least to my knowledge, that bedrock. We're then going to be opening it up and uh, building on that foundation in terms of magic, utilizing mythology, utilizing music, utilizing ritual composition, vibrating or intoning. There's going to be a lot of skills, a lot of knowledge imparted, and a lot of this stuff is going to really crack people's heads open. I'm not much of a gatekeeper. I don't talk about the things that I know I shouldn't or can't talk about. But other than that, I mean, I'm really giving a lot. You like this will be a master course
Nice.
in magic. So
That last episode on the Kabbalah class was fucking incredible.
thanks.
Yeah. So, sweet. That is a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to. And yeah, so thank you everybody for listening. And I liked doing the questions from people too. And I
That
think it
was
was
cool.
fun. So if anybody wants to send some more just for future episodes, feel
For
free to,
either of us.
yeah, communicate.
Yeah, for you want
Uh,
to ask Sky some questions too, so my brain isn't bleeding.
yeah. Cool. Alrighty then. Until next time.